This meeting is being recorded.
Okay, this meeting is being recorded. Okay, so hello, thank you all for coming to the workshop today. As I said, we're just going to record the first part and then we'll stop recording before we get into the sharing. So this workshop is one in a series of workshops that we've been hosting this winter and spring in collaboration with ArtForce NL. ArtForce is an arts-based education charity helping Newfoundland and Labrador youth overcome social and/or economic obstacles. Through arts-based programming and connections, ArtForce helps young people coping with challenging circumstances to develop life skills essential for independence and success. So we have this workshop today, and then we have two more coming up next week. On Wednesday, Amanda, who is here today, will be teaching a workshop called Presenting and Protecting Your Art. This workshop will talk about how to prepare your art to be displayed for exhibition and how to properly package it for shipping and storing. And then next Saturday, Rachel Gilbert is going to be teaching artist CVs and bios, where she will talk about the do's and don'ts of creating your professional CV and bio. I think Amanda's workshop is already full, but there's still spots left in Rachel's, and Rachel's is going to be on Zoom. So if you're not physically here in person, you can still attend. I think that's it for my little intro, and I'm going to give it over to Emily.
Love. Thanks, Ashley. Super cool series of workshops. Like, so great. Yeah, really cool work. Happy to be a part of it. Really, really happy. All right, let's dive in, everybody. So, like Ashley said, I have a couple slides. I have some participatory moments within the slides, and then I'm going to invite participation at the end for you to share a portfolio and for us to talk about it and give feedback on it, if you are so willing. And otherwise, let's just dive in. I'm going to do a little screen share. I have a monitor over here, so if you see me, like, that's what's happening there. So don't be alarmed. I'm just looking at my other screen. Okay. Okay, so I have some slides and I have a few example things that we'll look at later too. Alrighty, let's dive in. Online portfolios for artists. Can everyone see?
Yes.
My slideshow.
Yep.
Cool. Okay. A little bit about me, really brief. Y'all can go on my own portfolio later and do the digging if you so wish. But I'm an artist. I'm a practicing artist. I'm an educator. I teach art and design at the College of North Atlantic. I'm a writer. I currently write for a Toronto-based art magazine, culture magazine. And I'm an artist coach with my partner, Natalie Field in Toronto. We do a lot of arts-based programming and different types of coaching for artists. So I've got lots of stuff up here. I put some of it in the slides, but please pick my brain, ask questions. I can give a lot of info as we go through. So at any point, interrupt me with a question. It's not like we'll wait for a Q&A at the end, please. I will talk, and I do talk a lot, so just interrupt me, and that's all good. Okay, so that's a little bit about me. Okay, through this workshop, we're going to cover various things. We're going to talk a little bit about why online portfolios are so important to a career. We're going to talk about best practices for building or presenting an online portfolio, ways you can actually get that portfolio out there, connecting with an online community. So once you have a portfolio, how do you share it with others? And then we're going to open it up to specific feedback on your portfolios and questions that you have. Does all of that sound good with everybody? Give me a, yeah, thank you. Awesome. Okay, before we dive in, we're gonna have a super short, fun, chill icebreaker. I know everyone hears the word icebreaker and is like, oh goodness, but I promise that this will be fine. Okay, so I would love if we could just say our names, pronouns, where we're currently located, and give a fun or aspirational future headline about yourself. I've given you some examples. So my name's Emily. I'm an artist based in St. John's. My pronouns are she, her. And my fun headline, if I wanted there to be a headline about me that was fun, I would say Emily Pittman wins National Cutest Dog Award for the third time in a row for her Havanese Kingsley. And there's my puppy dog. If I was going to choose an aspirational headline, it would be something about having an exhibition at the National Gallery of Canva. That's a future dream of mine. That would be so cool. All right, so Amanda, why don't we start with you?
Sure. My name's Amanda. I'm a mom, an artist, and an arts administrator. I'm operations manager at Eastern Edge. If I were to come up with a fun headline about myself, what would it be? It would be that's a fun one. Let me see. Oh gosh, I'm so sorry.
That's okay. You're just giving the other participants time to think about theirs.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Yeah. Amanda wins jiu-jitsu title belt in her 40s in the blue belt middleweight women's division.
Wow, that's a great one. Awesome.
Aspirational. Amanda Penny has the funnest, most interactive website displaying her new art practice. Yeah.
That's a great one. Perfect. That's both of them achievable. I would love to see those headlines for you. Awesome. Okay, Jillian. I'm just going up my screen here.
Oh gosh. Jill Mercer. Jillian, I'm an artist. People know me as Jill. People know me my name and Mercer. Kind of just really practice because I'm retired. I have a fun headlining dogs. Jill Mercer opens her home to a dog rescue, I guess, venture in St. John's. Well, it's a fun one, but also it would be like crazy, but I would love to do it. But also other animals too, like, alpacas and llamas and just any animals that need rescuing. And my aspirational one would be that, she opens her first show. So wherever that would be with my art practice. Yeah.
Great one. Both of those are awesome. Thank you so much for sharing.
You're welcome.
Okay, Hanif, did I say that right?
I am Hanif Hosseini, pronouns he, him. And I don't think I have good ideas about writing my art headlines because I'm not an artist. I'm not creative like you. But
okay, well, they can be in any field.
I'm the father of my two fur babies. And I came from far east, not far east, in the middle of the way, from the Middle West actually. And for aspirational one is, I don't want it to be funny, but it's funny because I'm a Newfoundland entrepreneur who is honored by no one. And I have a antique rock business named Rock the Rock, if you ever heard of it. And that's it. I know that it wasn't aspirational and fun, but I tried my best. Actually.
That was good. Antique rock business. That's really
because I'm
cool.
not an artist. I'm just here because I found it very interesting, and I maybe have a workshop like this in the future. So
perfect.
That was
great. Well, glad to have you. That sounds really cool. I'll have to learn more about that later. Okay, Ashley, do you want to give us a go?
Sure. My name is Ashley. My pronouns are they and she. I live in St. John's, Newfoundland. I tried to make up a headline while everyone else was talking. So I kind of joined the fun and aspirational, and I said, Ashley Hemmings wins Sobe Art Award for mind-blowing mac and cheese recipe.
Oh, I just made mac and cheese 2 nights ago. Something about it. That's just. I feel like a good mac and cheese could win the Sobe. So,
right?
you're onto something.
Maybe.
Yeah, I agree. I think
Thank you.
totally. All right. Excellent. Okay, so now let's get a little bit into portfolios. The why of portfolios, to be the specific. Okay, let's see. I have some notes here. I'm not going to read verbatim, but just for my own little reminders. Okay. All right, well, first off, increase visibility. When you have an online presence of any kind, you're just opening yourself to a larger audience, right? So whether that's an audience, we'll talk a little bit more about like niche or not niche, but whether that's an audience of many people and many things, or a small focused audience of just in your field, it's just the opportunity to share what you're doing with more people, right? Generally, an online portfolio, particularly a website, which we have a lot more control over than social media, is a level of professionalism. So a lot of times when we are applying to things or even reaching out to people in the industry, the first thing that they're going to ask for or look for is a website, so that they can kind of see how you're presenting yourself to the art world. Portfolios now, being online, have a wonderful level of convenience. I still have like a physical portfolio from art school, like a big black zipper thing. And while that is lovely to hold on to, the physical pieces of your work, nobody wants physical work coming to them in the mail anymore. They want to be able to see digital reproductions, and it's easy for them to receive, easier for you to update, and it can be seen and shared anywhere. So it's really flexible. It's easy to update too because of its flexibility. Online portfolios can be updated from your computer, your iPad, your phone. And it's easier to do some updates in smaller chunks. We'll talk about ways to make updates a little more achievable too. When you have a portfolio out there in the world, it solicits feedback. Oftentimes this is good if it's people that we trust, people whose opinion that we respect. I'll also just put a little asterisk there and say that we sometimes get feedback from people who are just love to hear the sound of their own voice on the internet. So not all feedback is worth accepting, but by opening yourself up to feedback, we can give ourselves the opportunity to learn from it or make the choice of whether or not we want to bring it into our practice, right? That's always a conscious choice, especially when we're thinking about social media and putting ourselves out there. If sales is a part of your practice at all, if you have a commercial element to your creative practice, then having an online portfolio specifically tailored to sales can be really helpful. I'm going to talk specifically about how to tailor something for sales, because just having a website does not equal sales necessarily. So there are ways to make it more effective for sales. Okay, so those are some reasons why it might be beneficial to you to have an online portfolio. Maybe you already knew all these things, but sometimes getting really in touch with our why can be the motivation that we need to take the first step towards something that feels so daunting as putting a portfolio up online. Can feel like a really big step. All right, I got some examples of some different kinds of art portfolios that I really like. I'm going to show you in just a second, but I'll tell you why I've chosen each one of these three. The first artist is a Canadian painter, Andrea Suze. She sells her paintings directly from her website. I wanted you to have an example of this. This is not something that I do in my practice. I'm represented by a gallery. So the gallery handles the sales. So I wanted to have an example of a website online portfolio where the artist has control of the sales in their own hands, like on their own website. And she does a really good job of it. Susanna Montague is a Canadian sculptor. Her documentation is just amazing, especially with three-dimensional works or works that have multiple angles or need really complicated lighting, or work that has a lot of detail. We'll see more of her work in a second. The documentation is really make or break. I would say this is true of all portfolios, but particularly if your work like if you have a work that people always say is so much more beautiful in person, like if you've heard that from your work before, then you are going to want to pay extra attention to your documentation, because that's how we bring the online viewer and the in-person viewer closer together. We want to try to make those two people as aligned as possible, so that when they see it online and they see it in person, they say, yes, this is exactly what I wanted, or this is exactly what I imagined it to look like in person. So she's a great example of that. The third one is an American, well, I found him through a podcast, but he calls himself a storyteller. He's an illustrator as well. But what I really like about his website is he has a service-based website. So for example, on his website, what he's mostly promoting is his podcast and the ability for people to hire him directly for public speaking opportunities. So if you have a skill beyond your work, beyond your creative practice, or even aligned with your creative practice, promoting your service, you can say, well, I'm great at this, and it's obvious that I'm great at this because, you know, it should be shown in my work. Unless you tell people directly, hire me for this, they won't know that that is something that you are willing to be hired for. No one's going to take the leap and say, oh, here's a video of him, here's a video of me speaking. She must be wanting to be hired to be for public speaking opportunities. For in our minds, it's like a quick jump from A to B, but for them, it's like A to Z. Like it feels so far. So we have to actually say, these are the services that I have available, and be really transparent about it. All right, now let's look at some of these examples. Okay, so we have, first up is Andrea. So this website is really straightforward. With a website, you can have more is more, or you can have less is more, okay? This is the homepage, just one single photo, okay? The one thing to note is that this photo, she is so focused on sales. For sales, your biggest hurdle is going to be the idea of scale, or the idea of how an artwork looks on a physical wall, right? Because that is so hard to convey through documentation. So for this photo, she's highlighted two paintings hanging on a wall in relation to one another. We can see a little bit of the edge, we can see the shadow. So we're kind of immediately, okay, this is what this would look like on a wall. It's giving us really great context. The section that I wanted to show you specifically here is her available work. There's a few things that I want to point out about it. Okay, she has a shot which is clean white background. Okay, we love that. We love white space around the image, whether it's real or not real. Like this looks like a real wall, but you can also very easily fake it. I do that all the time in my own work. My white walls are almost never actual white walls. I add them in later in Photoshop because my studio is a mess and like all sorts of things. I can't keep a white wall clean long enough. So I do that in Photoshop after. And she has these lovely detail shots. Look at that. When I hover over it, we're seeing a little bit of the frame. We're seeing the brush strokes. That's just lovely. She does a really good job of showing the work in context, like in scale. This is something that if you aren't doing it on your website, like this is something that I try to do a lot on Instagram or on social media, for example, because I'm not selling directly from my website. But if you are selling directly from your website, what a great way to allow someone to say, okay, this is actually what the physical object looks like in space, It's awesome. She also has only a super small number of works available. Okay, only, what is it? 6. Not very many. We don't need to have a huge inventory. We want to have a little bit of a sense of exclusivity. Like they're not infinitely available. And if you notice right now, they're all sold. She doesn't have a single one still available currently in this date and time. So if I wanted one of her works, I'd have to join her newsletter. So that's a pull to get people onto your email newsletter right away. So another thing is when you sell work, you don't necessarily have to take it off. Oh, well, that's sold. I'm going to take it off the website. Leave it up there. Put that little nice sold sticker on it. It's a great strategy for getting people, for building that sense of value in your work. Okay, let's move on to Susanna's. Okay, this is her entrance page. Just look at these gorgeous documentation photos. Oh, I love her work so much anyway, but just lovely. So already statement, you know, front page of the website, just like, wow. Then let's click on artworks. Okay, just look at these documentation shots. Again, we've got that white space. We've got a highlight and shadow. These have almost definitely been edited after they've been photographed. It's very hard, I would say almost impossible, even with like professional photography experience, to get an artwork correct on the like straight from the camera. It needs almost always a little bit of tweaking. And again, I'm going to do another asterisk here. We're not tweaking beyond the work. Like we will never take a work beyond how it looks in real life, but we can take it up to where it looks in real life. Again, we're just trying to get that online viewer to that in-person viewer together. So what does this mean? If there is a crack in the painting and we just wish, oh, I wish the paint hadn't cracked, but it did. Could I just take it out with Photoshop? No, that exists in the painting for real. You cannot take that out. Like, sure, you can technically, but please do not take it out. However, now someone with an animal in my house, if there is a dog hair that just happened to be on the painting or on my lens, you know, that I didn't notice at the time, and then I walked over immediately after and brushed it off, no harm done, no more dog hair. It's not going to be part of the work when it's shipped. Yes, I can Photoshop that out of the work. So anything that is not part of the work, you can take out rather than have to set up your whole studio again with lighting and all of that stuff. Yes, you can Photoshop out a dog hair or a piece of lint or whatever. So yeah, anything integral to the work, leave it. Anything not integral to the work, you can adjust it. You can also do a slight exaggeration of color. So like say here, we've got this really fluorescent pink. Let's just say she took a photograph of that work and it's not getting that vibrancy that we can see in person. Or for example, if it was in a gallery space and it had correct lighting, a correct lighting setup that really allowed the work to glow to its fullest potential of how the artist wants the work to glow, we can edit that photo to mimic a gallery presentation with that really glow. We can up the pinks a little bit. We can increase the exposure to get that brightness, you know, that up the contrast, those kinds of things. It's a fine line between like lying and just enhancing in an ethical way. That I could talk forever about documentation, but that's all I'll say. Okay, next up we have Andy J Pizza. That's his podcaster name. I think his actual last name is, it's not as fun, I'll tell you that. So he's got a really dynamic website. So as you can see, he's got like a headline. He's got all of the big brands that he's worked with, and he's got examples of how they've hired him to work. This is specifically as an illustrator. So if I wanted to hire Andy as an illustrator, right there, I can see, oh, well, he could do something like this, or he could do something like this, or he could do something like this. Really strong, clear examples right in your face. Like as soon as you come onto the website, it's like, ooh, how fun. And then, ooh, professional. And then great examples. The podcast, I love this podcast. This is, you know, where I mostly interact with Andy in the virtual world. I listen to his podcast. So right there, highlighting the podcast, some great episodes. And then down here, public speaking. Okay. Book Andy to speak. Big button right there. Book Andy to speak. Okay. Without this button, we're not getting that same like it's a call to action. We want to have some kind of call to action. So like on Andrea's, the call to action is join the newsletter. Join the newsletter. Okay. Susanna doesn't have a super clear call to action, but it's because she's represented by a lot of galleries. So the galleries are pulling in the clients and the collectors, and she's using it more as a portfolio of her strongest work. And Andy has a clear call to action that he wants to speak for you. He wants to be paid for public speaking. I have my own portfolio. I'm going to save that for the end when we're doing our portfolio sharing. And then you can roast me all you want.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, let's get back into these slides for a second. Okay. Website best practices. Let me just make sure I didn't miss. Okay, examples, great. Website best practices. Your work should be front and center, okay? If that is the goal of your website, you know, it's a little bit of getting clear on your goals. So if you're an artist and wanting people to be learning about your work, then your work should be the focus, okay? Keep it simple. I say this with an asterisk. Again, so many things are personal to you. If you are a more person like Andy, for example, his website was certainly not white, clean, simple, but that's what his work is: colorful, fun, silly. That's part of his brand and his personality. So I would say that generally, if you want the artwork specifically to shine, keep it simple. You know, white lines, minimal fonts, not too many things for them to click. So it's like, where do I go? You know, but if your art is maximalist and super fun and neon, you can bring some of those elements in. It should be a reflection of you and your work. Yeah, easy to navigate. So where do you want people to go? There should be a clear start here. You can go in this direction. You can go in this direction. You can go in this direction. You can have things that are more in their face, front and center, and then have things that are more like, oh, if you're really interested in me, then you can like do a little more digging. But you want to prioritize wherever you want them to lead next, you want to give them kind of that through line from button to button to button. Mm-hmm. An about page of some kind, you know, it can be super serious and professional. It can be fun and casual, but you should have a little something about you. I've done both. I've done the super professional bio CV setup. Lately, I've been leaning into a bit more casual about me kind of silliness, and the jury's still out on which is, but it's kind of like whatever you're feeling fits where you are right now. I kind of felt like at the beginning of my career, I was really leaning into the professional side of things because it was like a little bit of imposter syndrome, and I felt like that was how I wanted people to see me. But now that I have some experience under my belt, it's like, I am a professional, quote unquote, so I can have a little bit more fun with it. You know, you might have a similar experience or feel differently. It's totally up to you. Some kind of contact info. This can be a form, an email, you know, anything, but just some way so that they're not searching if they want to reach out to you. Should be really straightforward, like, want to work with me, contact me right here. Mobile friendly and SEO, these are kind of related. SEO, at the bare minimum, what I always say for SEO is make sure that your URLs are clean. Make sure that the page names are what they're supposed to be. Like oftentimes when we're editing a website in the back end of things, it can be like a page number 1. That's what the page name is. That is what's going to show up on Google when someone sees your website. So you want that page name instead of page number 1 to be artwork or whatever the content of that page is. So just taking that extra step and cleaning up those little details like the URL, like the page names, like the page descriptions. If that's as far as you go, great. If you want to take it further and add in like search tags or like common words that might be found on your page, sure. But at the bare minimum, like that's what you should do. Make sure that all of the everywhere your work is seen is aligned with what they're supposed to be seeing. Same thing with mobile friendly. Oftentimes when you go to an artist website on your phone, especially if you're using social media as a way to promote you, most people are going to your website for the first time on their phones. More so ever will they see your website on their phone than on a computer, unless they're actually taking that next step to dig a little further. It will not usually be their first place of contact. So making sure that everything looks exactly as you want it to, taking that extra step and editing it in mobile version. A lot of website editors have mobile versions so that you can see exactly how it looks on a phone, is so worth the extra work that it takes. And updating your work regularly. I try to do it in chunks. It's one of those things that it can feel so daunting. We'll talk a little bit about how to make it feel less daunting, but it is important. Oh, someone just arrived. Ashley, can I let them in? Actually, I don't think that I can because I have the little cursor instead of a mouse.
I just let them in.
Okay, great. Okay, so that's for a portfolio-based website. So like just say your only goal with your website is to be seen. Like for example, with mine, I'm not trying to sell directly from my website. I want it to be seen. So all of those things, that's as far as I need to take my website. If you want to go the next step and sell directly from your website, have an e-commerce website, I would include all of that first list and bring it into the second list. Okay, so for example, taking detailed product images and including detailed product info, like we saw on Andrea's website. That is very important. If sales from your website are your primary goal and you aren't working with any other space, that's going to also be promoting your work for you in that way. High quality images, same thing. Documentation, so important. Some kind of path to purchase. This is similar to navigation, but with a more specific goal. Navigation is just having people be able to find all the things that they need on your website in an easy to use manner. Path to purchase is specifically, okay, they hit my homepage, they see something like the word acquire or the word available, and that takes them to like something that says, okay, shop. Like even if you don't use the word shop, but something that's saying, okay, this is how I acquire something. So you want to have a little breadcrumb trail of like enticing them to that available work. That's what we would consider a path to purchase. If you're shipping and handling work yourself, you want to have some kind of shipping and handling info, whether that's a guarantee, information about the courier that you use, information about how it's packaged, or even just, do you charge for shipping? Is it free as part of, are your prices higher so you can do free shipping? Like, it's all relative, and these are all decisions for you to make. There's no necessarily right or wrong, but the more transparent you are about those things, the less people feel like they have to email you to say, well, how is it shipped? The more incentive that they have, or like the less friction there is between buying. Same thing with a return policy. If you have no returns, which is totally valid. Art is not a sweater that we can try on and then send it back, right? So, but if you can just straight up say non-refundable, no returns, no exceptions. Put that out there so that people know that before they buy. And then say, oh, it doesn't fit above my couch. Sorry, find somewhere else for it to fit, right? You're not shipping it back to me. No, thank you. Or maybe you could say, sure, you want another one. That's, like I said, it's up to you. There's no right and wrong way to do it. But just be clear about it, whichever way you decide to go. This is optional, but it can be helpful if you have clients who have been really pleased, or collectors that have been really pleased with your work in the past, including some testimonials, is never a bad idea. And trying to have a consistent brand. We can kind of see that with the websites that I shared, but like particularly Andy, like he had a very consistent brand across all of the different projects that he had on the go. And it's just a way to say, okay, this is who I am. It gives a kind of clarity whenever they're working with you. And especially if you have multiple businesses or streams of income or whatever. You want it to all feel still like your voice. And it can change over time. Like you could have one vibe now and another vibe 10 years from now. But for the moment, pick something and stick to it, whether that's white and clean and simple or colorful and Willy Wonka. I don't know. Pick something and stick with it. All right. Okay, let's talk specifically about some website platforms. I've used all of these and more. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my personal preference and why, but again, this is such a personal decision that I cannot tell you that there is a wrong platform for you. You know, a lot of it comes down to pricing or, you know, different kinds of accessibility or availability, but I can tell you my experiences with these platforms. So for example, Wix. I used Wix for my website for the first 6 years, 5-6 years of my career. The pricing at the time was good. You know, when I didn't have a ton of income coming in, it was all in one. And when I say that, I mean like they can do domains, they can do all of the like hosting and everything right from within Wix. But even from the beginning, I bought my domains separately on GoDaddy. And then when it came time for me to say, okay, I don't want to work with Wix anymore, I want to switch to a different platform, that made it so much easier to switch. So I always do recommend, it's not the end of the world, you can't get it out of there if you've already committed your domain to a particular platform. But if you haven't, I do recommend buying it from a separate entity like GoDaddy, or there's tons out there. So that way you're just detaching it from the website builder and attaching it to another one. It's a lot easier process. And even when I switched from Wix to Squarespace tried to make me be like, well, let's take over your domain service. And I was like, no, thank you. I want to keep it within GoDaddy for a little while. But it's because they like to have like ownership of it. But it's nice to keep it separate if that's something that interests you, or if you think you might want to switch down the road. Wix does have a lot of templates available. They have a drag and drop user interface. It's really simple, and they do have limited flexibility. I think that the thing that bothered me the most about Wix was that it was a bit glitchy because everything was so freeform drag and drop that I would go on and my text would have just like moved slightly the next time, or just like some things like that, but not all the time, and like so minor that if there's other things that you really like about Wix, that it would be a deal breaker. Like, again, I can't tell it what it's a deal breaker for you, but I found that annoying enough to make me look into other options like Squarespace. That's what I'm currently using for all of my different website businessy things that I have going on. I've switched them all to Squarespace. It's really professional on the back end and the front end. It's really easy to use and really clean. And it's geared for being able to slowly transition up as your needs increase, whether that's adding on e-commerce later or adding on like a scheduling service to book appointments with someone or things like that. But those do come at an additional cost usually. So be aware of that. Whereas something that has all of those options already built in with no extra fee might be a bit more accessible. So pros and cons. It's really user-friendly. I really like the back end of things. I find it really easy to design and work within. And it's the mobile optimization with Squarespace for me is the strongest of all three of these. It kind of does it for you in a way that it thinks that you would like it automatically without any extra work. And then you can go in and adjust it to suit your needs. They also have really great customer support, something that's really well known about Squarespace, really great customer support, which is helpful, especially when you're trying to switch from one to the other and it's like, like, it's great. Okay, WordPress. WordPress is known to have the most flexibility, especially if you know coding, which I do not. But if you do, then they give you a ton of options. Like you can really customize it like down to the tiniest detail. there's a steep learning curve at the beginning, but once you have it, it's very like straightforward. But they do require separate hosting and some things like that. I found for me that the separation between the back end and the front end of WordPress, like you have to do all the updating in the back end, and then you're never exactly sure how it's going to look on the front end until you publish it. And it's like, oh, that's where that lives. But for people who have knowledge in, like I would just call myself more a web designer than a web developer, because I love to design websites and have a ton of interest in the like user experience and the making it as functional and beautiful as possible. Whereas someone who has web development experience, I tend to prefer Squarespace, which is more for designers. Whereas people who have web development experience or coding knowledge or things like that, the next level up than myself, they tend to prefer WordPress because they can really get in there and have full control over all of the things, both big and small. So more so about what your needs are. So for me, the winner is Squarespace. And there's way more out there besides these three, but these are the three that I have the most experience with. So that's what I would talk about. Does anyone have any questions or thoughts about platform options? Because it's such a big topic. Does anyone have one that they currently use and love?
I'm just getting started with my own personal website, and I've started with WordPress, but I was curious. I explored all three of these actually when I was searching, and I'm interested to know if Squarespace, do they have the free option for getting started, or do they have?
It's a free trial. Not
Okay.
That's another thing that I didn't actually include in this. Thank you for reminding me. Wix has a free tier where it's free forever, but it's like you don't get your custom domain and it has all the ads on it, which is fine. Like if that's fine with you, that's fine with me. Like it's all personal preference, but it's free forever. WordPress, I'm pretty sure, also has a free forever option with ads and things. I'm not positive on that. I haven't used I've always used just the paid version of WordPress. But Squarespace, you only get a free trial. So
Okay.
Sometimes it's 2 weeks. I will say that they almost always give you an extension. Like right before your 2 weeks are up, they'll send you an email and be like, need more time? And then you say yes, and then they'll give you another 2 weeks, or like you can push it. But yeah, they don't have a free tier. It's paid right from the get-go. That's a really good question, Amanda. Hanif, did you have a question?
I work with several platforms,
Mm.
and I believe that the Squarespace is the best one for artists because it's not very complicated. And I currently work on Shopify because it's e-commerce focused, but it has higher price and the back end is more complicated. I don't recommend it for artists. And
more
there's
for like a storefront. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And there's another option which is more affordable, but it's very limited, and it's only one page. You can only have one page, and it's named Card, CARRD. And I've seen that some artists use that because it's cheaper to use.
Cool. I'll look into that one. I haven't heard that. That sounds really interesting, though, for someone who just wants a portfolio-based website, or maybe someone at the start of their career who just wants to get something out there. That's really cool. Thanks for sharing.
You're welcome.
I'll look into that one.
I took the easiest option out there, which was FASO. I don't know if you've heard that one.
No, I haven't.
Yeah, so that's how I've got my web page, and it was like a really easy platform to use, but it is a monthly fee. But that was one that I had heard recommended by several people, so that's the one I went with. But having limited technological ability, I thought, okay, that's the one for me.
Yeah, for sure.
FA.
It's a great reason to choose a platform. What is something that I can maintain myself,
Exactly.
for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, lovely. Okay, let's carry on. Okay, so ultimately, like I was saying, the platform has to work for you. Okay, so choose the one, whatever it is, that is the best fit for you. Okay, create a consistent brand across that platform. showcase your best work, especially on the homepage. Okay, you can have an archive that's like an anything and everything if you so choose, but your best work should be front and center, the thing that you are most proud of or the thing that you are most actively interested in pursuing in the future. You don't want to be promoting a direction that you're no longer going. Like say you were painting portraits for a while and you want to switch into landscapes. Don't have portraits as your front and center website, because people are going to think that you want to paint more portraits. That's the way that it works. Maybe even if you only have one landscape painting, that's the direction you want to go in. Just put that one up there on the homepage and then put the portraits in a past work or archive or something else. It's helpful to tell a story, and that can be literally with words, with like a call to action or a bio or anything about you, anything where you're outright telling people what you're interested in, or it can be you're telling the story with your work, okay? Or telling a story with more formal text that accompanies your work, something like that, or even within including details like the titles of your work. You can flow your work in a way that kind of tells the story. Engage with your audience. This is where the call to action idea comes in. So if there's a step that you want them to take, reach out to you, work with you, learn from you, buy from you, whatever it is there a next step that they can take if they come to your website and say, I really like what I'm seeing here. They seem like a cool person, their artwork is nice, like whatever you want them to take away. How can I engage with this art? So it's a little bit less like a page in a magazine where they can't take it anywhere. It's just a beautiful thing for them to look at, and something that is more about connection. We want to think about websites less as like an ad that you put it into the world, and more so about a like hand reaching out to say, like, this is my bid for connection with you. Yeah, networking with other artists comes to that. And that's a little bit more about social media, which we'll talk about shortly. But if you come across the website of another artist that you really like, reach out to them and say, I really love your work. Can you tell me more about it? Or like, don't feel afraid to, because they've also got their hand out just like you, okay, through their website and their work. So don't be afraid to use those platforms for connection. And that kind of comes in hand with seeking feedback. And whether that's feedback in something like this in a workshop where we can talk about it, or whether it's from your friends, someone in your community, it is also excellent to get feedback from people who are not artists, to say, okay, what is this website or what does my social say to you? Does it say that, I'm like available, that I have work that I want to be shown or shared, or like what are your takeaways? Because oftentimes they'll be like, oh, well, it's just like a lot of videos of you making something with no finished. You might not have a single finished work on your whole Instagram. And then it's like, oh, you're right, I actually don't share finished pieces with like any information about how they can buy them, if that's something that you're interested in doing. Sometimes it just takes an outside perspective to get you out of what you've been doing for a while. Updating in small chunks. I know that it's easier said than done, and you could argue it both ways. And I kind of do argue it both ways in a different part of this presentation, but it's all dependent on your brain. Like, if updating in small chunks is going to take away that sense of overwhelm that sometimes updating a portfolio can give, then do it that way. If batching a large amount of tasks at once is going to help you get through all of that work, do it that way. As long as that doesn't give you permission to say, okay, well, I'm going to wait until I have more to add. That often, that's the trap I fall in for myself all the time. It's like, oh, I don't want to just upload one painting. I'll wait until I have 10 paintings. But then when I have 10 paintings, I'm like, I have to upload 10 paintings. That's so much work. So I don't know. It's a trial and error. I can't tell you what's going to work for you. But ultimately, this is what I want you to take away from this. Think about where you want the limited attention of your audience to be, and create a portfolio that takes them there. Okay, so your audience has a small like minuscule these days span of attention. Okay, so if you want them to buy art from you, take them there. If you want them to check out your new YouTube video, take them there. If you want them to listen to your podcast, take them there. You have to think consciously about where you want your audience to go and push them there. They're not going to find it organically. You have to like scream it, and for them, it'll still be a whisper. Okay, so really push them there. Okay, this is just a small side note of selecting your work. Be picky. And like I've said, you can have an archive if you want to include anything and everything, but for highlighting your best work, be picky. Okay, is it important for you that you have a niche, or is it important to you to show a variety of skills? Depends on whatever type of practice you're building. If it is important for you to have a niche, only have that niche on your website. That's it. Do whatever else other art you want, but don't include it on that very niche website, because it's going to distract or divide your audience. Okay, so if you want to be within a niche, keep yourself there, specifically for that website. If you want to do many things, like if you're a painter and you're also a knitter and you paint and sell to galleries, but you knit and share your knitting and craft fairs, maybe make 2 websites with different business names. Or maybe the choice for you is variety. If you are a jack of all trades and you have many things that you want to share with the world, then make your website a variety website to put them all together without shame. Choose one route and do it proudly. So either say, okay, I'm going to pick my niche and be really clear, or I'm going to show all of the things that I have with love in one giant gallery so people can see all the things that I love to make. The reason why I caution against like dividing up, for example, I'm going to use a painter because I'm a painter. If I paint in a variety of mediums, like say I paint in watercolor, I paint in acrylic, I paint in oil, I paint on paper, I paint on canvas, I paint on panel. It might be my inclination to divide up my website with a bunch of buttons that say work in acrylic, work in oil, work on watercolor, work on paper, work on panel, work on canvas. The viewer, especially a non-art viewer or like a collector, for example, doesn't know what any of those things mean. They don't know what a paint in acrylic versus a paint in oil means. And to them, it doesn't make any difference. They just want to see the work. So all those buttons, each one of those buttons is increasing the friction for them to get to the actual work. And it's too many decisions. If you put them all together and say paintings, then it's just a beautiful gallery. And yeah, sure, a watercolor doesn't look exactly like an acrylic painting. They might look quite different, but that's okay. They're still all made by your hand, and they have your individual flair because you made them. So they're allowed to touch. It's not like food on a toddler's plate. They're allowed to touch each other. Okay. They're allowed to live and exist within the same website with no problem. Just say paintings, put them all together with love. And this is true if your work goes across different subject matters. Your landscapes don't need to live separate from your portraits. Put them together. Maybe when you put them together, you'll say, I actually use a fair bit of green in my portraits, and it's bringing out the green in the landscapes. Or, the viewer might be able to see through lines that you can't even yourself see because you made them. They don't have to live separately. Just let them all be friends. Let them all hang out together. It's a better final effect for the viewer, or at least give the option to view all. If you really want to keep them in their separate categories, sure, but at least give some kind of button where someone can just click view all, and I guarantee you 9 times out of 10 that's the first button that they're going to click, view all, because they just want to be able to see it all without clicking through a bunch of pages, or a bunch of different types of work that they'd understand. If you are going to separate it out, I would say separate it out chronologically, because that's something that they can understand. Okay, they can say, this is the most recent work, this is the oldest work. They're always going to click the most recent year. I can pretty much guarantee it, And maybe you have work that is, like, for example, we'll talk about my portfolio later, but I have work that is outside of my commercial practice, like murals or installations. And I have a page, instead of separating it out by installation 1 and installation 2, I just have a page installations, and all of my different projects live on that one page together. Separate from my chronological work, yes, but it's still only one place for them to click to see all of those different projects, or all my murals are just put together on one big page, not separating it out. So personal choices, okay? It's up to you, but these are just my recommendations. Yeah, so flow, recency, are these things important to you? That's what I was basically getting at there. If recency is not important to you, then you don't need to stress it, but oftentimes that's what something that they're going to be at least interested in, the viewer. Consider your audience. This again comes down to the conversation of, are they collectors? Are they future students? Are they future employers? Who are they? Who are you trying to get onto your page? Consider your audience, because you're going to speak very differently to those 3 audiences. Include details. That can be any kind of details. It can be artwork details like scale and size. It can be details about your work experience, any kind of details. And get feedback. I'm going to say it until I'm blue in the face. Get feedback on your work and on your websites and on your Instagrams, and just feedback. Okay. Pause. Pause. Everybody, let's just pause. Inventories. It feels out of left field, but it's really not. If you don't have a well-updated inventory of your work, it is so much harder to keep an updated portfolio. Okay, if you don't have your ducks in a row on the back end of things, they're certainly not going to line up for you on the front end of things. So if you do not have a well-organized inventory, start there. Start there before you even begin to take on. Or just say you already have a website and it really needs a refresh. Start with refreshing your inventory first, then refresh your website, because that's just going to make it so much clearer and so much easier for you. I personally use a free platform called Airtable for my inventory. Here's a screenshot of it here. It's basically like Google Docs meets like Excel, Microsoft Excel. It's super great. Would recommend it to anybody, but there are so many out there. Like really, you could even just use a straight up Excel sheet if that works for you. But I use Airtable and love it. Love it, love it, love it. I will never use anything else. All right. Okay, let's talk a little bit about artist statements. Artist statements are helpful for your portfolio, even if you're not having it outright published on your portfolio, which some artists choose to do and some artists don't. Getting really clear on your artist statement or your why behind your work is going to seep into every page of your website. The more clear you are on that, the more clear it will be to others in obvious or in subtle ways. So let's do a little challenge. I want you all to think just for a sec. I'll give you all a few minutes. And can you describe your artwork? Just your artwork, not about you. That's a bio. We're going to talk about that very briefly in just a second. But just your work alone in 10 words or less. Put it in the chat. I'll give you a few minutes to get you started. You can identify your inspiration if you have a really clear source of inspiration. If you don't worry about it. You can describe your practice. You can discuss the meaning behind your work, if that's clear for you. Keep it concise. I'm making you keep it really concise. Normally, it doesn't have to be 10 words or less, but in general, you want it to be, I find it actually helpful to have a longer version and a shorter version. And then I can send the shorter version off in an email or something when it's like just getting some information out. But then when I'm formally applying to something, I can give the full longer version, maybe like 250 words long version, like 50 words short version. Yeah, Jillian? Do you have a thought? You're muted, sorry.
Okay, I was wondering, are you referring to your work in general overall or just one particular artwork? What are you aiming for?
That's a good question. I would say unless there is a work that you would consider your defining work for the next stage of your practice, which maybe there is, like there's a new piece that's just like you're going to take it and run with it, then I would say speak about your practice as a whole, your work as a whole, your general interest in making what you make.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. And edit and revise. That's the last thing on my list. We're not necessarily going to get into that too much today, but great note for y'all. So yeah, take a few minutes, 10 words or less. I'm not going to be counting words so you don't have to stress, but write it out. Oh, sorry. I just opened the chat and iPhone had a question. Would you have a different tab for installations? Yes, I personally do on my website have a different tab for installations because they feel like a different part of my practice than my paintings, for example. I have, well, I'll show you at the end of the workshop my own website, but I have like an archive section with years, and my paintings are divided into years, but then I have a separate section for my installations across all years and my murals across all years. Yeah. Who is iPhone? Hello, lovely to have you. Who are you? Okay, I'm gonna put a timer on my watch. Let's see. I'll give you, do we think 3 minutes is too long? You're a Powell. Cool. Do we think 3 minutes is too long? Do we think 1 minute is too short? I'm torn between 1 and 3. What do we think? 3. Okay. Like Amanda says 3. Your first name is A. Cool. A Powell. Well, lovely to have you. Cool. That's cool, A. All right. 3 minutes on the clock. 10 words or less. I should have pulled up the Jeopardy music for this. Do, 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 do.
Are we making a list of words or are we making a phrase that describes
You can do
our
either.
practice?
You can do
Okay.
either. I will
Okay.
accept a list of adjectives. That would be very helpful for you writing your own artist statement, or I will accept a phrase. Yeah,
Okay.
great question, Amanda. I think either
Thanks.
would be very helpful. $30 seconds. Just to put all the pressure on. Yeah, you can copy and paste it there. That'd be great.
Actually, I'm not an artist, but I kind of curate artworks.
Mm,
If you consider our rugs artworks,
Oh,
because
absolutely.
they're all handmade. So I
Mhm.
already had this on my website, so I just
Great. Love to
create.
see it.
It's
Okay.
21 books.
21 words. That's okay. I'll give you an exception. That's cool. Okay, great. Thanks. Okay, that was the
So-
take So take them out, your last words, add them now, and then put it into the chat, please. Why are you shaking your head, Amanda? Oh,
I don't know, because I don't know.
it's okay with a little bit of like word vomit, all good. That's totally allowed. Okay, well, while we're waiting for people to add it to the chat if they so wish, then let's. Oh, Julie, that's lovely. Okay, let's start talking about those who've decided to share. Okay, great. So each rug is truly unique and authentic. From the intricate knotting and weaving techniques to the use of traditional dyes, our rugs are made with unparalleled craftsmanship and attention to detail. Lovely. Okay, so we've got some great words. Unique, authentic, intricate, lovely word. Traditional, craftsmanship, unparalleled, attention to detail. All of these words are painting as a painter, but painting a beautiful picture of what we can expect when coming across the actual work itself. So I think that does a beautiful job of priming the viewer to expect the identity, to expect the kind of vibe of your portfolio. Like I kind of can picture what I'm going to get from that. So that's really beautifully done. Does anyone else have any thoughts for Hannah?
Yeah, I really enjoy the intricate knotting and weaving techniques phrase. Yeah.
I think it creates a beautiful visual picture of what it is he does without even seeing the objects, the rugs themselves.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, Amanda. I work with paper, wood, found objects, and bookmaking to create interactive art about parenthood, community, friendships, and family. Okay, there's a lovely thing going on here. So first we have physical materials, paper, wood, found objects, bookmaking. Right away, we can imagine the work from those materials. Then we're getting into the meaning, parenthood, community, friendships, and family. So you've got a lovely, like, this is what I'm using, this is what I'm saying. Both of these things coming together into a beautiful little statement. That's lovely. Really well done. Does anyone have any thoughts for Amanda?
I think it's intriguing. It makes you want to kind of look at the work further, entices you.
Absolutely.
I feared that it was too vague and like wide open. Like found objects could be just about anything. So I should probably I don't know. Do you have any advice that way, like of how to narrow it, or do you think keeping it broad?
I mean, in 10 words, you can only get so much,
Yeah, you're right.
Totally. Also, I'll ask you, Amanda, is your work wide reaching?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if your work is wide reaching, then sometimes it can't be narrowed in a statement, which is totally allowed. Like if you have a super niche practice, then you're going to be able to get a lot more focused in a piece of writing than you are if you have a wide-reaching practice. That's just the reality. So sometimes it might feel a little bit vague, but it's just allowing yourself to encompass the full scope of your work. If that makes sense. I hope that's reassuring. I think that for specific works itself, you could accompany them in formal settings, perhaps with writing that gets more to that meaning and the like whys of those specific found objects or materials. But for a general, like, I'm getting clear on my own why, this is lovely. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, Jillian, blooming as does a flower, reaching its tentacle of beauty. Wow, that really, okay, so what I'm getting from that is there is a poetic nature to your work and your practice right away. You're very intentional with the words that you chose. There's a sense of beauty, not only in, you were saying you're describing literal beauty in the blooming of a flower, but there is also beauty in the description of the work. So it's like care on both sides, care in the making of the work and care in the describing of the work. Is there anything else you'd like to share about it, Jillian?
Well, I'm kind of speaking specifically about kind of a new direction I'm going with. So this kind of one painting that's really, triggering the further work that I want to do. So it's really more, it's going to be more about growth and transformation. And so I kind of was sticking with the 10 words, speaking about this one particular painting. But of course, under pressure, I feel like I don't fully say what I want to say, but it's more about transformation and growth.
Yeah, I love the word blooming there. I think that right away conveys a sense of transformation, growth from a bud to a flower. Like, yeah, lovely. Great. It's like a metaphor. It's a metaphor for transformation and growth, and even maybe a metaphor for your work. We'd have to see it, but that's just lovely.
Oh, thanks.
Okay, Ashley, locally important craft processes considered through community, queerness, and humor. Doesn't have to be grammatical. I'm not spell checking or anything like that. Okay, so we've got craft processes, so we've got community, queerness, and humor. So again, we've got the what, like the materials, the discipline you fall under, I would say. And then we've got your why, what you're trying to say, kind of like Amanda's. Locally important, could you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, I do a lot of like rug hooking and quilting, and I think about them in relation to their importance in like Newfoundland history. Yeah. So I guess that's what I was trying to hit on in very few words.
So the context.
Yeah, the context
surrounding the work is just as important as the work itself, or it has like a role in the meaning.
Yeah, I started making like a list of 10 words after Amanda asked that question, and I definitely put like place as one of the words in that list. So
I think that locally important, it is conveying a sense of place. I think that, and in 10 words, yeah. But something to expand upon in a longer statement. That's really interesting. Yeah, community, queerness, and humor. Love it. I love the humor element. I think that's definitely true of your work. Absolutely. Okay, great. Squirrels Worlds. I take painting, positivity, passion, plants, and make masterpieces. And all of this, I have created joy, hope, and cure to the dull moments in life. Okay, excellent. Well, we've got lots of descriptive words here. Painting, that gives us a clear idea of what the practice involves. Positivity, passion, love both of those. It has a sense of like vitality, vibrancy. Plants, we can imagine right away kind of where that where the work is going. And make masterpieces. What I take from making masterpieces is that you give each work your, like all of you, your attention to detail, you give it its full due, which I just love. In all of this, I've created joy, hope, and the cure to the dull moments in life. And I think that if you feel those things for your work, then we will also be able to feel those as a viewer. I think that when we look at your work, we will get a sense of joy and hope. So not only are you describing what you're taking out of the work, but you're also describing what we can take out of it as well, which is lovely.
Like you said, push people towards what you want them to see, kind of, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And I appreciate you having me here, guys. Thank you. And I'm very sorry I had a family emergency. I came in a little late.
No
I
problem.
appreciate everything I learned from you guys. Thanks for having me again.
Of course, and it is get recorded, so you'll be able to catch the first part
Awesome.
later.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Well, thank you so much for sharing.
Okay, great.
All right. Excellent. Did everyone who wanted to share have an opportunity to? Oh, hey, excellent. Okay. I do many different mediums, from visual art to photography to writing to in-person presentations and workshops. Cool. So I kept it abstract, but would love to hear feedback on how that lands with folks. Excellent. We can definitely give you feedback. My work flows from my lived and living experience as a person who navigates the world through multiple intersecting identities. Off to a strong start. I want to start a revolution, by offering a lens which disrupts and deconstructs societal norms, while validating and uplifting the stories, visuals, perspectives, and dreams of what is oppressed, marginalized, ridiculed, dismissed, denied, and wantonly destroyed. Wow, that holds a lot of power. Okay, some words that really jump out to me is the idea of navigation. You're navigating through multiple identities. I think that that sense of navigation is going to come through in your practice. The idea of a revolution, such a strong word, direction, element of power that you can really bring into your practice, and so lovely to include in your statement here. Disruption, deconstruction. So we've got kind of two polar things. We've got disruption, deconstruction, we've got validation and uplifting. So these two things, like the taking away and the rebuilding. Lovely to have both of those. Stories, visuals, perspectives, and dreams. So that's giving us a little peek into what the subject matter, or what the, it's almost the how. So you're telling us what you're trying to achieve, and then you're starting to get a little bit into the how there. What is oppressed, marginalized, ridiculed, dismissed, denied, and wantonly destroyed. Your language is just chef's kiss. Yeah, just your word choice is just so strong. Each one is like packing a punch, just coming through. And I think that if that same kind of power is coming through in your work as it is in that statement that you just wrote, or maybe even working on, I'm not sure. That's just, I think you've got a really strong start, or a strong foundation for a practice, and then a way to present that practice to the world. Anyone have any feedback for A? Hey, do you have anything else that you'd like to share? Okay, go ahead.
I'm forgetting I can actually use my voice.
No problem.
I'm trying to put it into words and it's not working.
No problem.
So I don't know if it's gonna, anyways. So I am trained, I've done like over 50 jobs in my life. And I'm trained as a mental health counselor, trauma therapist. I've done Buddhism for like 15 years. A bunch of things, but I find in the work that I'm doing and the ideas that I have that I would, especially installation wise, I would love to make happen. It very much comes from a place of things I've learned through Buddhism, like maybe like one thing is a parable called the second arrow, that's about the suffering that we, through our minds and societal bullshit, can put on top of the suffering we're just going to experience as a human being regardless. And I wanted to actually like embody that in an installation. And also, like, actually another thing that's really important to me, and I try to do with everything that I'm making, is that it's very community. So actually, like, I begin something, but it is, I want everything to be something that not only people can come up and touch and interact with, but I want them to, and then they can actually create something for themselves and take it away if they want, or leave it. But like it's actually an organically unfolding piece of art that the community can continue with. Yeah, like I have a dream of having like I totally want to have a show in the village because I feel like that would totally be like,
Oh, that
fuck
would be
y'all. And
so
like,
cool.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like in the village, especially, I don't know, because it's that kind of like forgotten place almost. Right. And like, and where like, you know, it's like, no, this is for everybody. And I want everybody who feels they can to come in and like join, right. And create and participate. And anyways, yes, I'm very passionate about it, but I find
Awesome.
that
Well, I
everything,
think that passion definitely comes through in the words that you chose and the language that you used in that piece of writing,
excellent.
which is just lovely. Yeah.
And yeah, just trying to find a way to kind of, because I don't want to, I think things like Buddhism and counseling can scare people. So like how to, and that's something, I don't know. Are you part of Eastern Edge that like if people wanted to come and connect with you individually on certain pieces, like run stuff by, is that a possibility?
Oh, absolutely. Yep.
Okay,
For sure.
excellent.
If you wanted
All
to
right,
work with me
because
further, you mean? Yeah, for sure.
yeah, okay. Because I know we only have so much time in the webinar and I don't want to take up all the space. So I will connect with you another time. But thank you so
Please
much. I
do.
really
Love
appreciate
it.
the feedback.
Great. I'm
Cool.
so glad. Thank you so much for sharing. All right. Wonderful. Okay, I have one more short ask of you in the field of sharing. So we're not going to write a full bio. I know that Rachel's going to cover that in another workshop, which is going to be great. But I would love us to make a little elevator pitch. And I've kind of written a little template. You can change it, put your own spin on it, but this is what I've provided. I am a or an blank. I make blank of blank for blank. So let me give my own example. And like I said, if that doesn't fit exactly, change it. But so for myself, I might say, and of course we all wear many hats. Like I could have an educator elevator pitch. I could have an art coach elevator pitch, and I could have like a painter elevator pitch, or, you know, but just kind of choose one area of interest for this exercise. So I might say, I'm an artist. I make paintings of houses for collectors. If I was to run into somebody at a fancy party and someone said, "What do you do?" then that's what I could say. I'm an artist. I make paintings of houses for collectors. Because we have the target audience, which is collectors, the people who I want to give me money. If I'm coming at it with my commercial hat on, right? Then I might use the word collector. If I was going to do my educator hat, then I would say I'm an educator. I make art education opportunities. Maybe I would just say for artists. I would take away the of. Yeah. Have a think. Do it real quick. I'm not even going to give the full 3 minutes for this one because we should take the, you know, clarity that you just got and bring it into this super short and sweet elevator pitch. Just an exercise. Awesome. Amanda, yeah, I'm sure that would be great for A. Absolutely. Okay. I'm going to give, okay, I will give 3 minutes, but that's it. That's all you get. I'm cutting you off after 3 minutes. While you're writing, I'm just going to go through my bullet list here with bios. Bios are generally a brief introduction to you. Okay, so like I said, they can be formal, they can be informal. Usually it's some relevant background information, description of your work, not like an artist statement. You're usually not getting into the meaning, although sometimes we can do an artist statement bio like hybrid and give a little bit about us, a little bit about our work, depending on what the opportunity requires. You might want to include any honors or awards or achievements that are relevant, especially if you're using your bio in any kind of application process. Keep it concise and edit and proofread. I know I'm going to say it 100 times. Get feedback, edit, proofread, get feedback, edit, proofread. Okay, still have a little bit of time. So yeah, a short elevator pitch about something that you're interested in your creative practice that you would want to share in a concise and clear way to other people. It's very hard to do it verbally. I find that whenever I'm in, my partner is in medicine and I go to a lot of events that have no artists there. So they say, "What do you do?" They're all, you know, medicine people. And I say, "Well, I'm an artist." And sometimes that's enough and oftentimes it's not. So if I find if I can give a few extra words of context, not a lot, just a little bit, It just gets the conversation going, gives them a little bit of clarity. And if they were ever looking for whatever I provide, it's like a little bit of a bit for connection as well. Do you have a question, Jillian? You're muted. Oh, you put it in the chat. Love it. Okay, great.
Oh,
Perfect. Okay, 1 minute left. Jillian is the winner because she put it in first. No, I'm just kidding. Some really good ones coming in. All right, that's time. So I'm going to encourage you all to put them into the chat, and I'm going to start off with Jillian. I'm a painter and I make artworks exploring the internal world of the individual for reflection and self-awareness. Love it. So I'm a painter. I make artworks exploring the internal world of the individual for reflection and self-awareness. Super clear. Did that add any clarity for you, Jillian, writing that?
Yes, I guess just kind of listening to other artists as well who are kind of in this webinar. I guess I'm just kind of realizing like I'm more focused internally than externally. So, and I guess I'm hoping to draw people into their internal worlds.
Wonderful. That makes complete sense. And I think that's really clear from the elevator pitch that you just wrote. Excellent.
Okay,
Okay, Squirrel's World. I turn the gray days of Newfoundland and make them a glitter bomb. I would love a nice glitter bomb. Can you come to my neighborhood today? Okay, so you're bringing inspiration from your surroundings and bringing them to life. Wonderful. Okay, do you have anything to share, Squirrel's World, after the process of writing that?
I have like not very much. I haven't done much of this, like talking about myself like this.
Yep.
So when I do write, it's like, oh, that's cool, or oh, that sucks. So it's a matter of taking what's cool and putting it down. And
yeah,
making
I completely agree.
Yeah.
Yep. I think that even from that short statement, though, it's giving us clarity on what it is that you're interested in and what you do. Absolutely.
Most of my stuff on social media has a lot to do with mental health and addictions because I'm coming from both places and I'm winning my battles daily through the painting and through my yoga and through a lot of healing internally as well. But I focus more on the fact that I'm doing things every day to make my life better, and it's a combination of it all. So that's why I added the paint and the glitter and the plants, because I have a little tiny indoor garden here.
Lovely.
Yes, so I'm actually in transition of moving now to end of this month. So I'll be looking forward to what's next. Hopefully it'll be an outdoor garden.
Oh, fingers crossed. That's lovely.
Yes.
I think that comes clear, you know, bringing brightness into your experience of the world and sharing that with others.
Yes,
Lovely.
yeah. Now I had a great idea to do like some sort of a root doll exhibit if it was possible. And I had little root dolls where I've grown different plants and I've kept them and I'm keeping all my roots.
Cool.
As a process of my journey, my roots are going to grow bigger. And as my journey grows and I become and evolve as an artist, as a person, my journey as the root dolls will grow too.
Beautiful metaphor. Oh,
Yeah,
lovely.
yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing.
I'd like to get that out there just to say I would love to do that someday.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Thanks.
Excellent. Thank you so much. All right, Ashley. I'm a textile artist. I do a lot of rug cooking, quilting, and knitting, and I work at an artist run center. Oh, I love how you're bringing your multiple hats together into that elevator pitch. All right. Tell us what you were thinking there.
That's just like what I say if I meet someone new and they ask what I do. Sometimes I'll put the like I work at a gallery first, depending on who they are and
Who
what
they are, yeah, and
what they'll
they were
value.
gonna
Like if they're kind of like, what's an
understand.
artist? I'll say I work at a gallery first.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yep.
normally if people ask what my art is, I'll say that like I'm a textile artist, and then I follow that with like rug cooking, quilting, and knitting in case they don't know what textile artist means.
Yeah, because textiles, even people who do know what textile
Yeah,
is,
it
it's
can be
so
like
all
many
encompassing.
things.
Yeah, that's right. So giving that specifics, it's like, okay, I can picture a rug cooked, I can picture a quilt, I can picture a knit piece. Maybe not exactly yours,
Yeah,
you know, but
something.
but you're bringing us there. Love it. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thanks.
All right, Amanda, I'm an artist. I make playful pieces of art for everyone. Okay, I love the playful pieces. I love the for everyone, you know, for artists, non-artists, whoever comes across it. That's great. What were you thinking when writing that?
What was I thinking?
Yeah.
My little girl came and asked me a bunch of questions. I was time crunched, so I had to. So I just like I kind of filled in the blanks really basically. But
Yeah, I think it works though.
yeah, like I was trying to kind of I guess be as general as I could to leave it open for curiosity.
I think it does. It does leave it open to curiosity. Playful art pieces for everyone. It's like, I'm immediately intrigued. And if you were to say that to me in a conversation, I would say, oh, well, what's a playful piece? Like, what does that mean to you? And then that would spark the conversation, which is exactly what we're trying to get at from this. Lovely. All right, Hanif, I am a social documentary photographer. Very clear, love it. I capture daily moments of the people around me to reflect my worldview through my photos. Excellent, that's a really clear picture. Daily moments, people around me, and I'm imagining that I'm gonna get some of your perspective from that. Yeah, that's lovely. Anything else to share? Okay, no pressure. All good. Thank you. Let's see. I think, okay. Hey, I'm a queer disruptor. Great, strong starting statement. I make multimedia invitations for revolutionary reflections on the everyday for everyone. Okay, I love the invitations word because you were talking a lot about interactive and engaging the viewer, engaging everyone who comes through with the work. So it is an invitation. And I think that if you were to say that to someone, I would say, "Ooh, what might an invitation look like, or what would it be if I was invited into a piece of yours?" Like that would be a really great entry point. Queer disruptor. I think even that, I am a queer disruptor. I'd be like, "Ooh, tell me more." That's lovely. Okay, on the everyday for everyone. Really clear. Did writing that? I guess I'll pose this to the group. Did writing these short elevator pitches help gain any clarity for you in your own work? Maybe you already had them locked and loaded, like Ashley, you're ready to go. Or maybe this was a new experience for you. What did you think? You can put it in the chat or say it out loud.
I found it helped, especially because I live with ADHD, so I could take a year to do the like 3-line thing. And probably even having my son come in was like, okay, just get it down.
Right. Force your
Yeah.
hand.
And it's helpful to hear the feedback because I feel I'm very new. I'm 49 and just coming into trying to maybe do art on a bigger, like involving other people kind of level. So I don't like, I'm wondering, am I too abstract, or am I, is it like, should I be listing more concrete about the pieces or the work, or leave it open? So hearing what's speaking to people or jumping out is helpful in knowing how to clarify or like hone it better later on if needed. So thank you. End of
Wonderful.
thoughts.
Thank you for sharing, eh? Awesome. Okay. I am conscious of time. Ashley, we did start a little bit late, so maybe I can get a little bit of extra time. If anyone needs to go, that's also okay. But I'm just, Ashley, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm totally fine to go over time, especially if we get into the like people sharing their own portfolios.
Yeah, this has
and it
been
goes
so
long.
fun. I want to hear from all the people. I want to, like, that's my favorite part of these. So anyway, I
Yeah.
didn't want to just burn
Very
through my
flexible on
slides
time.
slowly. Yeah, okay, good. I'm glad to hear that. Okay, excellent. Let's talk a little bit about online communities. Okay. Social media. I'm going to talk specifically in the next 2 slides about some different pros and cons of some different platforms, but generally about social media. I have tons of thoughts about this. I could truly talk for the full 2 hours just about this, but use what you like. The rules are always changing anyway. Like even by the time, I didn't want to get too into specifics even later with some of them, because by the time I made these slides a few weeks ago and today, they've changed something. Like the rules change so fast, no matter what the platform is. So I find that as soon as I start leaning into whatever it is that they're telling us to do, they tell us to do something else. And it's like, oh, so use what you like. Don't stress too much about what's being pushed and prioritized and all those kinds of things. Like just use what you like. It's better for everyone's experience. Again, into that kind of same vein, lean into the social of social media. Okay. I was working with an artist recently. I do a series of crit groups with like small groups of artists or feedback. And I had one artist who was so discouraged, so focused on the likes or like the metrics of social media. There are so many metrics out there that are measuring us against other people and against other artists and things. And it's so easy and sometimes like beneficial depending on your goals. I'm not saying it's a bad thing to pay attention to those things, but great point, eh? Yeah. Facebook owns you. That's what owns your images. That is a great point. But and kind of actually in line with what I was going to say is that they're not made for us. They're not made for artists. These platforms, social media, they're businesses, giant corporations, to be transparent, and they're not made for us. They're not made for artists. They're not made to benefit our careers. They don't care if what we put out there gets seen. It makes no difference to them. They don't have our best interest in mind, like not even the tiniest bit. So they're not made for us. And sure, we can use it if we like it. We cannot if we don't. But ultimately, social media is a grain of salt kind of thing. Like, don't lean too much into likes or any of the metrics because they're arbitrary. Sure, there are some people on there that find you and connect with you and love you through platforms like that, and that is wonderful. You know, if that's what you're experiencing, oh my gosh, so happy that that's what you're experiencing. But if what you're experiencing is imposter syndrome, comparing yourself to other artists, feeling bad because this painting got 10 likes and this painting got 50, but you like that painting better, and that's a blow to the confidence, like none of that is actually saying anything about how your work really resonates, because only 1% of your audience, whatever your audience may be, is actually seeing what you share at any given time. And it can be higher or even lower than that, depending on what these businesses are making money off of that given day. So really, if you're using it, focus on making connections with other artists, you know, like lean into the social side of it, making connections with people, and just don't put too much stock into the confidence and put your confidence into it. I always recommend, if you're gonna do any social stuff, is to have what I call long form and short form platforms. Like, don't put all your eggs in one basket. We'll talk about that a little bit more in the next couple slides, some examples. And take breaks without guilt. You know, don't feel like you have to be a machine. And this is true for your website or anything that you're putting out there. Oh, also I followed an artist who found out through a regular bar that one of her images was being sold at Walmart and she had no idea. It had been taken from what she had online and used without her consent or knowledge. For me, it can be helpful to know possible outcomes rather than be surprised with them. So I hope this is helpful info, not meaning to freak anyone out. That is very helpful info. Actually, I'm do a lot of work with CARFAC, National CARFAC, and they have a committee about copyright laws, and they're doing a ton of work in protecting artists. So I can pose that question specifically with online social stuff and see what they say, because I'm sure they're aware of these kind of crises, and that's really that would be heartbreaking. So thank you so much, A, for sharing that. Okay, so beyond social media, I did want to share a couple of ways that you can make connections with artists. This is one that I absolutely love, Jillian. Also, I find social media can focus your attention too much. Yeah, it's definitely attention, time and attention for sure. This was a state, so hopefully better in Canada, though online knows no country borders. Yeah, great point. It's true that online knows no country borders, but we might have a little bit more ground to stand on in terms of legal action. Maybe, maybe not. I'll have to look into that, but that's a really great point, eh? Thank you so much, Henny, if you have to run. No worries. Thank you so much for joining us. It was so lovely to meet you. Okay, bye. Okay, so let's put a pause. We'll come back to social media. Like I said, I could talk about this forever. I'm going to talk more specifically in just a sec, but let's just pause it for a moment and talk about some ways beyond social media that we can make connections with other artists. One of my personal favorite ways is co-making groups or co-working groups. These can be virtual or they can be in person, but just with the theme of online community, focusing on virtual co-making groups. Small or large, friends and family or strangers. You can set a schedule. It can be sporadic, or you could have like a weekly or monthly call. They're great for studio time and accountability. So like I have a couple that we meet monthly, and the only goal is that you check into the call and you just make whatever. You don't even have to share what you're making. You could just, and sometimes you chat. Like I have a group that's with friends, so we chat. I have a group that's with artists from whoever wants to arrive. And they can be so great for accountability. And just studio time can get lonely. How do you get connected with such groups or create one? Great question, A. So I run one free every first Tuesday of the month, I believe. I'll share the information about that at the end of the call. Not like you have to join my co-making group. I'm sure there's many wonderful ones out there, but just putting that out there. The other one that I'm in is just with a group of friends that I met at various artistic practices. Actually, this group is a group of friends that were all artists at one time, but now have different careers. Like one of them is a coder and one of them is a video game. Awesome. I'll send the information to Ashley. And Eastern Edge hosts open studio and events so often. Awesome, Ashley. Okay. I want the info for the next one. That's wicked. There's tons of these opportunities around. You just have to start looking for them. Maybe do a Google search, or a place like Eastern Edge, like a local community hub, would have all the information especially for local things of where these events are happening. Absolutely. Okay, next up is studio crits. They can be self-organized and free, or they can be paid. They can be one-on-one or group. They can be casual or they can be formal. Some places that you can find feedback in this kind of critique format, you can go to your own peers, people that are at the same level as you, and ask them directly, hey, can you give me some feedback? Could we set up a call? Could you come to my studio in person if that's available to you? A mentor, that's someone who's a step ahead of you, someone who's making things that are with knowledge beyond your knowledge base. You can ask them, how would you do this if you were in my shoes, or can I get your advice? Or even across industries. Like sometimes we can work with people in other arts industries or creative industries, but even outside the art industry. Like I love to meet with like graphic designers, interior designers, people in all different writers. The writers have really great perspectives. Yeah, so you can search out a formal critique. or you can search out a casual critique or just initiate one yourself, like asking somebody, hey, can I get some feedback here? That kind of thing. Yeah. And again, they can be group ones are often longer, more formal and usually paid, or you could do one-on-one, like, hey, let's just have a call. Come check out what I'm making. I'd love to get your advice on it. That's a really great way to get feedback and to make connections with other artists. Mm-hmm. Ashley, does Eastern Edge do any critique nights or anything? I feel like I've heard about that at one point.
Yeah, we haven't in a long time. We were talking about bringing it back, but we just have a lot of other projects on the go right now. But
Totally
maybe.
fair. Yeah. Cool. Excellent. Well, if you do ever in the future, let us know.
For sure.
Okay. Let's dip back into the world of socials for a second. So there are two kinds that I kind of say, if you're going to go into the world of socials, pick one of each. I mean, you can do multiple, of course, but that's a lot of time and energy. Like, pick one that you like of a follower based and a subscriber based. Let's come back to follower based. So I've listed a few. There's Beyond. This isn't the end all be all. This is just my notes and experiences on a few of these. So Instagram, TikTok, Pinterest. When I say follower based, I mean that people are following you. You have a page and people follow you, and it's completely algorithm based. So you have no control over when people see the things you make, especially now that things aren't chronological anymore and everything has ads. Like, people might see it that day, people might see it 2 weeks, people might see it never. So that's what I mean when I say follower based. They're following you and things just get passively pushed out in front of their eyeballs whenever the corporation sees fit. But not to say they don't have value, because they do. Instagram, TikTok, Pinterest. So Instagram videos, carousels, it's constantly changing to compete with TikTok, which is one of the most frustrating things about Instagram. But some things that are helpful to share there, if you're so inclined, is behind the scenes to give people a bit more of like access to you and available work. It's if you're interested in selling, you have a commercial practice, and that's a way to say, hey, look, this is what's available. I'm trying to get it in front of more people. TikTok videos, they're very heavy on trends. So if you want to lean into the trends, it's a great place for you to explore. If not, it's not necessarily for you, perhaps. They have a huge user base, which can be an advantage because you can grow, but it also can be a negative because you're competing with a lot of voices. There's a lot of noise on there. Tips and tricks usually do well on TikTok because there's a lot of knowledge sharing, and catchy music that does well sometimes. But I'll say beware of the research temptation. This is kind of in line with what Jillian was saying about, or I think it was Jillian, about how they take so much time and energy. Like, you can spend hours doing research of different kind of videos to share, and you're not actually making anything. You're not adding anything of value. You're just consuming. So be aware. They're very addictive. So yeah, the research time. Well, I'm doing research. It's like, okay, are you though? Have you been doing research for 3 hours? Okay, then Pinterest. This is something that I'm just starting to lean into myself, and not even so much with my art practice, but with my art coaching group. But Pinterest likes images, videos. They're a search engine. Pinterest is a search engine. So it's helpful if you use tags or descriptive words like painting, if you're doing painting, or like art coaching, if that's what you're trying to get at there. So things that might be helpful or accessible for Pinterest is like finished work, or things that are helpful for people, like tips and tricks, things that people might want to save and refer back to, that kind of thing. All right. Subscriber based. If you're a little bit, not in love with this idea of social, this is really where you can get a lot of bang for your buck, I'll say. So this means that people subscribe to you. They actively say, okay, I want to get notified when this person has made something. And it's a more like, there's still some kind of algorithm at play, potentially. Like, we never are in full control, but we're a step closer to the people who want to interact with us than we are in a follower-based model. So they can be helpful. It's that second level of connection. I would say like a follower is like an acquaintance in the world, or maybe even less than acquaintance, like somebody who passes by you on the street one time. and waves hello because they're friendly. And a subscriber is someone who's like, oh, I'm going to check it out passively. It's still very passive, but it's a step closer. So for example, YouTube, they can subscribe to you. Sure, there's tons of people who will see your stuff and not subscribe to you. It's almost like a blend between a subscriber and a follower, but people who subscribe to a YouTube channel can get notifications, and there isn't the same algorithm of like, it's more chronological, or it's actually a search engine. It's search engine based. YouTube is owned by Google. So people find videos on YouTube by searching for terms in the search bar, and then the suggestions come up. So it's a little bit different of a way to be found or to find content. You can do short form videos, and then they're also competing with TikTok and doing like the vertical videos as well as the long form videos. I find with YouTube, it's intimidating. You can find a YouTuber that you like for inspiration. And I'll also say that they can be more polished, or they can be DIY. Like there's all sorts of different types of content out there. Next up is podcasts. Podcasts are really helpful because it is very clearly a subscriber model. People subscribe to podcasts that they want to hear from regularly. So again, it's taking that step closer to you, who you are as a person. And you can do interviews. You can just have a personal podcast where you share your experiences, and you can even have a podcast across any topic. It doesn't have to even necessarily be about art or your practice. You could, Squirrel's World, you could do a gardening podcast because that's relevant to your practice, right? And that would still get, the idea is to show your personality.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. When people listen to a podcast, it's like having a friend in your ear. Maybe not for the first few episodes, but over time you start to feel connected, and it builds that little bit of shares your personality behind the screen a little bit. Okay, next, and probably the one that I would want to impress upon you the most, is having an email newsletter. And I know this is a thing where it's like, oh, nobody texts their emails. And it's like, yeah, maybe nobody does. But just having an email of someone is something that they can't take away from you. And when I say that, I mean, if Instagram goes down tomorrow, the company goes bankrupt or goes to jail or whatever could happen, those followers are gone. They have no way of finding you or connecting with your business or interacting with your business ever again. But if you have someone's email address, then you can give them news and updates within your control, and without any kind of other factors. I mean, sure, there's always the argument that, now there's spam folders and like the different types of folders. And yes, there always is limiting factors, but still you can have someone's email and reach out to them directly. It's less of a wall between them and you. So newsletters help to build a network of people who are interested in you. It's like the closest step they can take in saying, I'm investing in your, like, I want to give my time and energy to what you're putting out there. It's like, if something like TikTok is the farthest removed, then I'd say the newsletter is the closest, like if we're doing a scale like that. Studio updates, show announcements, you could do it more like blog style where you're just sharing your thoughts and experiences. And I would say less is more. You say, well, I don't have anything to say. That's okay. You could send an email once a year. You could send an email 4 times a year. Like really, less is more. It's better to have the emails and not spam them than say, okay, I'm just going to send something out because I want to have something to say. Just let them show you that they're interested by signing up for your newsletter, and only send things out when you actually have something to share. Take the pressure off a little bit with email newsletters. All right, before I move on, does anyone have any, that was a lot of me talking. Does anyone have any thoughts? Actually, take a second. My laptop is going to die. I just need to grab my charger. 1 second. So think about it. All right, so what do we think? Anyone have anything they'd like to share after all that?
I'm very grateful for the opportunity to learn a little more about it all, because like I said, I'm very new to the whole scene, and I'm a little nervous entering it. I'm not sure where to go and what to do, but I came towards Eastern Edge because I know that you're doing it right. It's real. It's not something you deny anyone. It's there, right? So I'm here. That's why I keep coming
Wonderful.
back. Thanks
Well,
for the information.
just in the idea of building online community, this is a great way to do that outside of the ways that I listed. Attending workshops, that's wonderful. You're
Yes.
doing exactly the right thing.
Thank you.
Excellent. All right. Lovely. Well, does anyone know of where I could get a tutorial as such with a real person in real life, even through Zoom, about how to technically use Instagram? When you say technically, do you mean
I literally mean, like, I've had an Instagram, I don't know, a year probably, and I still don't know, like, I repost things, but then when I go on to my individual one, I'm like, none of those are showing up. So I actually don't know what I'm doing when I'm on Instagram.
Oh, you mean like how to make a post, how to share something?
Yes, so that, like, I mean, like, literally, like, and anyways, I feel like I'm so old, but like, literally that basic. I feel like I figured it out with everything else, but Instagram just continues to be a mystery to me. So
Instagram 101.
yeah. I mean, if there's stuff about, like, artistically what's helpful to do, that would be great, but literally even just something like technically to know that other people are actually seeing what I've posted and it's not just in my imagination.
I have trouble, like, with Instagram. Am I on mute? No. Okay.
No, I can hear you, Amanda. Yeah.
Sorry. On Instagram, I can relate, because I don't know between the reels, the stories, the posts, and sharing.
Yeah.
Like, I can do basic posts and I can post things, but I don't know what is the most effective when, and like the ins and outs of, like, the different ways you can share, So yeah, I can relate there, and I could learn a lot more about Insta.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because again, if you're putting all that effort in, you want to make sure that it's actually out in the world. Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
Thanks for not making me feel so alone, Amanda. I appreciate it.
All right.
I was just going to add in, I'm 60, so I kind of have a sense of how A feels, but I took a course on using Instagram, and I still don't feel that much further ahead.
Okay, well, I'm just trying to think, like, what? Well, okay, can I put a pin in that for a sec and we'll come back to it?
Yes. Can I add a quick thing to it?
Yes, of course.
For me, I say, like, in real life, in real person, because especially with my ADHD, like, people will be like, oh, well, just go look at this video, and like, I do not. I get super overwhelmed with all the stimulation, and I take in audio stuff really, like, I have to write everything down. And so that's why it's like, I just need a person. And then I can ask questions about, like, because I'm always the person that the weird thing happens to that nobody else encounters. So.
You got it. Yep.
Yeah. Thanks.
I get it 100%. Totally. Yep. Thanks. All right. Let's put a pin in that, just with the effort of, excellent. Thank you. Okay. All right. We're almost at the end of the slides, so it's actually good timing. Just in the idea of, just like you said, if you're going to put all this effort in for time, how can we get more out of our portfolios in less time? So plan ahead. And I say this with a grain of salt, okay? Because I can make a big plan and then not follow it at all. So I'll say plan ahead, asterisk, if that works for you. Sometimes the planning ahead works for me, and I love that, having an idea of what to expect of what I'm going to put on my socials, on my website, whatever. But sometimes the easiest thing to do is just to take a recent photo, put it out into the world and not think too much about it. So that's like I said, I'll say that with a grain of salt. But even if you're planning ahead, it's just, okay, I'm going to post anything from my camera roll on Tuesday. Like that could be your plan ahead. Just finding something that's a good fit for you. I see a super cute cat and oh my gosh. Anyway, so sorry. That's the cutest cat. Okay, back to this. Using templates. Using templates, especially for the saving of time, you can use templates that already exist. You can make templates for yourself. So this is true for many things. So for example, there's templates for website platforms. If you're building your website, you can use a template, drag and drop kind of scenario. That's a great time saver. You can use templates for social posts. Like you can find templates on Canva and all sorts of different places. If you're the kind of thing where you're like, I don't care too much about it, I just want to have it look beautiful in a short amount of time. Templates are your best friend. You can use templates for writing. There's templates for copy out there, for writing. There's ways that you can pull from knowledge and expertise of other people or work that already exists out there in the form of templates. So that's a really great way to save time. Batching your tasks. If you're a batcher, this is going to work for you. If you're not, it's not. But if you are a batcher, then maybe you say, okay, I'm going to do all of my website updates at the same time. So I'm not logging in and out of my website platform every other day trying to tweak the little tiny things. Okay. Or I'm going to like schedule all of my Instagram posts at one time so then they can just roll out over the course of the month. Batching some tasks can be really helpful for you if that's how your brain likes to work. Ultimately, one of the best ways to do more for less time is to outsource some tasks. Maybe there's some things where you're like, okay, you know what? I never update my website. I never do it. I hate doing it. It causes me so much guilt and stress knowing that I need to update it. It's like draining. Every time I'm in the studio, I feel guilt that I'm not doing this other admin random thing. Maybe you just say, okay, I'm just going to have someone else do it. Update my website for me once a year, even. Outsource that task if that's a fit within your life at the moment. If it is, maybe that's something that you can make happen. Also, there are automation tools. And I know I'm speaking really vaguely. If anyone has any specific questions at any of these, please, I will get into specifics. But there are automation tools out there that can connect one app to another, as an example, that can streamline a process. I will give you a specific example for this. For my website, I use Squarespace. I have a Squarespace scheduling system on my website. I teach a private student once a week in our lesson. And so she signs up for her private lesson by booking the appointment on my website. So no conversation has to happen. She knows what time she wants. I put my availability there. She books it. That's easy. I don't have to do any work there. Then when she books it, not only does she get a confirmation email of the appointment, it also emails her a reminder 24 hours before. I think that's 2 less emails that I do not have to send. Then I have my Squarespace website hooked up to my FreshBooks accounting. I use FreshBooks for like accounting. And so when she signs up for a lesson, it automatically creates an invoice for the amount of money that lesson costs. It doesn't go to her like I do payment in a more casual way with e-transfers. It could be more official if I wanted it to be. But that way, when I get paid for those however many lessons, maybe she'll pay me for 6 lessons at a time, I can just go into my FreshBooks and say there's 6 invoices there for those 6 lessons. Paid. Amazing. It's all kept track of for me. I didn't have to make any invoices. I didn't even have to, when she signs up on my website for that appointment, it goes into my Google Calendar. Don't even have to put it into my own calendar. It's like there are so many little tiny tweaks like that can actually shred tons of time. Like if we're talking about carving time back into studio time, if that's the goal for you, then there's like automation tools or these kinds of things can be so helpful. They're kind of like a workshop in themselves. I could talk about this forever, but yeah, there's some little tips and tricks, some automation tools that would be really helpful. And ultimately,
and you get all that through, sorry, you get all that
okay.
through Squarespace?
Well, okay, so Squarespace is like the basic package. Yes. Then I use Squarespace's add-on, which is their scheduling system. So it's an extra fee, but it's still like under the Squarespace umbrella. Then FreshBooks is a separate company. FreshBooks plays nicely with Squarespace. They have like a link to each other. So I would say it's Squarespace plus their scheduling service plus FreshBooks, to be super clear. So a Squarespace website fee, that's their scheduling fee, plus I pay for FreshBooks. So yeah, it's an investment of money, which is, you know, is totally wherever you are in your life and the kind of things. But for me, I knew that I wasn't going to be able to keep on top of all those invoices. So it's like, I might as well not even take on the student because of the time that I was going to have to put into all the admin. Like, it was not enough money that I was charging them to make it worth all of that extra emailing and work. So yes, I do pay for those services, but it allows me to take on the student. That's kind of just the way that I look at it. It's, you have to do your own balancing of your own like mental books, like what is worth it and what's not, and only you can make that choice for yourself. Great question. Thank you so much, A. And ultimately, repurposing content. You know, don't feel like you can't share the same thing twice. It is said that it takes 5 times somebody actually seeing something to register it. So, and who knows how many times we put something out there into the world, do they actually see it? Maybe they only see 2 times of the 5 times we shared it. So we might have to share something so many times for them to actually like see it in their, register it in their minds. So if you feel like, oh, I've shared this thing 3 times already, people are going to be sick of seeing it, especially on follower-based platforms where it's like we have no control over who is seeing stuff and when. Shout it to the rooftops, share it 10 times, maybe not in the same week, but over the course of a year. You can share the same painting. I'm speaking as a painter. You can share the same painting many times before someone is even going to think, huh, have I seen that before? And they might not even consciously remember. I saw that on her Instagram 3 months ago. They'll just say, huh, it looks familiar. And then they'll keep scrolling. Like, it's, no one's going to come at you with the like reshare police. It's you can reuse content again and again, and it's fine. Okay, my final note on this is done is better than perfect. Done is better than perfect. I'm going to say it one more time. Done is better than perfect. Okay, do not let the desire to have a perfect portfolio, a perfect online presence, stop you from getting anything out there at all. Just throw spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks. Okay, you can always change it later. Anything that's put up, anything that's added to your website can be hidden or taken down later. So make something, get it out into the world, then get feedback on it, then start the editing process, right? You can't edit a blank page, as they say. So done is better than perfect. Get something out there and then see where it takes you. It's a much better strategy for waiting until you have the perfect solution to start. That's true with anything, but it's especially true with something that can feel so intimidating and overwhelming as an online portfolio. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Edge and Art Forest. I'll still give the opportunity for people to share, but thank you so much. Just want to come and say this has been so wonderful, and I'm really grateful to be invited and to be a part of this. Okay, one more note. This is a personal plug for myself. Ways I can help further. I do other things. I do many things. Lots of things that I do. There's a list of things that I do. I have a podcast. I do co-working sessions. I do online studio visits. I run artist crit groups. I do photo editing of artwork. It's a lovely example there. I do artist statement and bio writing and editing, artist mentorship, and I have a training on how to build an art inventory. Anyway, you can find all the information here, and you can reach out to me with questions or if you just want to have a chat. I don't bite, I promise. All right. I'm so sorry, Ashley, that I've gone so over time, but if anyone does want to share their portfolio and get some feedback from me in the group, I would love that if we still have the time and availability for that. What do we think?
yeah, I'm going to stop the recording now.
Awesome. Thank you all.